Eat Carbs. I'm your host, Brittany McChrystal, and this is your cozy corner of the internet where we chat all things health, wellness, and sustainable weight loss. If you are new to the podcast, hello and welcome. And if you have been listening for a while, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. This is our moment, just us girls, when we can relax, have a chat, and just really get in the nitty gritty of like all of the things that I'm sure are like clouding up your head. And before we get into today's episode, if you have been loving this podcast, please don't forget to share it with a friend, or if you could like the podcast, it really does help get this podcast out there and it helps this podcast grow. It's pretty much the only way that it does get out there. So it would mean the world if you could do that. Thank you so much. So we're just going to get straight into today's episode because it's a really big one today. This is one of those conversations that I literally wish somebody had sat me down and explained to me this properly at the start of my journey, because I spent so long thinking fat loss was about being perfect, was about being strict, was about cutting everything out, was about starting over every Monday and just feeling like I was constantly doing something wrong. And unfortunately, I learned the hard way and had to go through years without knowing this. And the truth is that I was not trying hard enough. I was actually trying too hard, believe it or not, just in the wrong way. And so today we're talking about something that completely changed my body, my mindset, and my relationship with food. And that is understanding the actual math behind fat loss. And I know when you hear the word math, you're like, Brittany, absolutely not. I did not sign up for this. But just stay with me, okay? Because this is not complicated, overwhelming, track every single kind of gram math, okay? This is simple, this is practical, this is the kind of understanding that makes everything click. Because once you understand this, everything gets quieter in your head and you stop second guessing every food choice. And you stop feeling like you are either on track or off track, and you finally feel like you know what you're doing instead of just hoping that something works. So what if I told you that fat loss doesn't actually require more discipline, more restriction, or more motivation? It just requires a little bit of understanding. Not complicated math, not tracking your life away. I'm talking about simple principles that once you understand them, it makes fat loss feel almost easy. Like you're no longer fighting yourself, you're just working with your body in a smarter way. And this is exactly how I was able to lose the weight and actually keep it off. Not by cutting out the foods that I love, not living on salads and willpower, but by learning how to structure my food in a way that supported my goals while still feeling good. So today we're breaking down 3 concepts that changed everything for me. This is volume eating, food swaps, and also the 80-20 rule. These aren't hacks and these are not wellness trends. They're not something that you do for a few weeks and then fall off. They're simple, sustainable principles that you can actually apply for the rest of your life. And when you do, everything starts to feel easier, calmer, and way more in control. Because at the end of the day, it really is just math. And math doesn't care if you're motivated or not. It just works. Alrighty, so let's get into it. I want to start with volume eating because it is a way that actually makes sense, because this is one of the biggest shifts that you can make if you're trying to lose fat without feeling like you are constantly starving. Most girls think they struggle with consistency because they lack discipline or they don't back themselves. But honestly, a lot of the time it's not a you problem. It's that you're trying to fight your body instead of working with it. Your body is wired to keep you alive. So when you're constantly under eating, skipping meals, or eating really small portions, your hunger just keeps getting louder and louder. And eventually you're going to give in. Not because you're weak, it's because your body is literally doing its job. And this is where volume eating changes everything. Your stomach has these little tiny sensors that detect how physically full it is. And it doesn't count calories, and it doesn't know if you've had 400 calories or 800 calories. It just knows how much space in your tummy is being taken up. So you could eat something that is really small but high in calories. So like a small burger and fries. And you could still feel hungry after. Or you could eat a really big high volume meal and be completely full, even if the calories were lower. And that is the shift. It's not about eating less food. It's about eating more of the right foods. When you start focusing on the foods that take up more space in your stomach, like veggies, fruits, and lean proteins and fibers, a really simple way to think about this is looking at your food levels. You've got your low calorie, high volume foods. These are things like fruits, veggies, salads, even things like popcorn. They're the foods that you can eat a lot of, and they fill your plate up with your stomach. They fill your plate up and your stomach without blowing your calories. And then you've got your foundation foods. These are things like proteins, your carbs, your meals that actually keep you going. So chicken, eggs, rice, potatoes. This is what gives your meals substance and keeps you fuller for longer. And then you've got your higher calorie extras. These are like oils, dressing, nut butters, sauces. These aren't bad, but they do add up quickly without really filling you up. And once you understand this, you start building your meals differently. Your plate gets bigger, more colorful, more filling, instead of small and restrictive. Now, I'm not saying for you to cut out all of the higher calorie extras like oils and dressings and nut butters, because they're actually really important to keep you satisfied, but it's more about the portion of those. And something that really helps with this that not enough people talk about is the order that you eat your food. Instead of going straight into the most calorie dense part of your meal, you actually want to start with the foods that fill you up the most. So having a big glass of water before you eat, starting your meal with something light and high volume like a salad or veggies, and then moving into your protein, and then finishing with more calorie dense parts of your meals. What happens is by the time you get to those higher calorie foods, you're actually already satisfied. So you naturally eat less of them without forcing yourself. There's no willpower involved, it just kind of happens. And that's why volume eating is such a game changer, because it takes you out of this place of feeling like you're constantly restricting, to constantly thinking about food, to constantly trying to be good, and it puts you into a place where you actually feel in control. You're eating more, you're enjoying your meals, and you're feeling full. And at the same time, you're still losing fat. And that is when it starts to feel easy. When I lost 27 kilos, this was a game changer. I stopped trying to have willpower and started using volume engineering. I would make my meals look massive, giant plates of food that felt like a feast, but I was actually in a calorie deficit. And this is how you stay healthy and happy, like you aren't fighting your hunger. You're engineering your way around it so your brain feels like it's never in a famine. This is how you break the toxic traits and the yo-yo cycle for good. This is actually one of the biggest things that my clients also find as well when they start my meal plans. They're like, wow, I can't believe I'm eating so much food and I'm actually full. And it's because we have engineered our plates. So we're going to talk about some swaps, because I think this is where most girls either make fat loss really easy or completely miserable. The biggest mistake that people make is thinking that swaps have to be extreme. Like this has to be an all or nothing situation when you're suddenly going from pizza to plain chicken and broccoli or fries to a dry salad. And yes, technically that creates a calorie deficit, but it also creates a life that you don't actually want to stick to. And that's why it lasts 3 days and then you go back to that cycle of I'll start again on Monday. The approach that actually works is what I call lateral swaps. You're not removing the meal, you're just slightly adjusting the numbers so it works better for you. It still feels like the same food, still the same craving, and it still fits your life. It supports your goals instead of working against them. So instead of regular beef, you go for a leaner version. Same taco bowl, same flavors, you're just quietly cutting down a big chunk of calories without even noticing. Instead of a big flour wrap, you go for corn tortillas, and suddenly your meal is lighter and it's still just as satisfying. Swapping sour cream for Greek yogurt is one of my favorites because in something like a burrito bowl or tacos, you genuinely cannot taste the difference, but now you've added protein and dropped the calories without changing the experience of the meal. Even something like granola, which people think is a super healthy option, can be so calorie dense. And swapping it for something like puffed rice with a drizzle of honey still gives you that crunch and sweetness, but without turning your breakfast into a 400 calorie blowout before you've even added anything else. And cooking is another big one. You don't need to drown everything in oil for it to taste good. Using an air fryer or even cooking it with a little bit of broth can give you the same texture with a fraction of the calories. And this is the part that really changes everything. None of these feel like a sacrifice. You're not there feeling restricted or thinking about what you can't have. It just feels like you're making a slightly different choice. When you stack a few of these across your day, it adds up. You've created a 300, sometimes 500 calorie difference without shrinking your portions or feeling hungry. You're still eating full meals, still enjoying your food and living your life. But now the math is working for you. And that is the shift. Fat loss stops being about willpower and it starts being about awareness. Because when your meals are set up properly, you don't need to rely on discipline all day. The structure is doing the heavy lifting for you. Now, this is my favorite part, the 80-20 rule, because this isn't about being perfect most of the time. It's about building a lifestyle where your default choices support your goals and your flexible choices support your life. Because here's the reality. You don't gain weight from one meal. You gain weight from your overall pattern. And the 80-20 rule is all about shaping that pattern. So when we say 80% nutrient-dense foods, we're talking about the foods that actually do something for your body. Meals that built around protein, fiber, whole foods, things that keep you full, energized, and satisfied. That might look like a high-protein breakfast, balanced lunches, proper dinners with carbs, proteins, and fats, snacks that actually fill you up. These are the meals that make fat loss easier because you're not constantly hungry or thinking about food. Then, the 20% is where you get to be a normal human. This is your chocolate after dinner. This is brunch with the girls, your pasta night. This is cocktails on the weekend. And instead of using those things and to feel like you've fallen off, they're actually a part of the plan. And that is the shift. Because most people treat those foods like they're breaking the rules. So the second they have them, it turns into this, well, I've already stuffed it. I may as well go all in. But when you expect them and when you allow them, there is no urgency, there's no guilt, and there is no spiral. You have the food and then you move on. And this is where it becomes really powerful for fat loss, because when your 80% of your intake is aligned with your goals, that creates your calorie deficit naturally. You're eating filling, lower calorie, higher protein foods most of the time. So that 20% doesn't ruin anything. It just fits into the bigger picture. And that is the difference between being good all week and then blowing out versus being consistent overall with flexibility built in. And I think the most important part to understand this is 80-20 doesn't mean perfect Monday to Friday and chaos on the weekend. It is not a time to split. It's a pattern. It can look like a balanced day of eating with dessert at night, a lunch out with friends but a high protein breakfast, a couple of drinks but still hitting your meals earlier in the day. It's woven into your life and it's not separated from it. And honestly, this is what stops that all or nothing cycle, because you're no longer chasing this unrealistic version of clean eating that you can't maintain. You're creating a way of eating that actually fits your real life. You can go on holidays, you can go out for dinner, and you can have your favorite foods, and you don't feel like you're starting over afterwards. And that is why this works long term. Because fat loss isn't about what you do for a few weeks, it's about what you can repeat without feeling hard. And when you live in that 80-20 space, you're consistent without even trying to be perfect. You're just living in a way that supports your goals. Volume eating lets you eat more while consuming less. Swaps lets you eat the foods you love with better numbers. The 80-20 rule keeps you focused on what actually moves the needle. Remember, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be strategic. And the math is on your side. So thank you for listening, girls. If this clicked for you, share it with somebody who may be overcomplicating their fat loss. Sometimes the simplest framework is the one that actually finally works. So if anybody is out there and you're like, I want this structure in my life, I want some more one-on-one support, then I do offer one-on-one coaching. So the link is in the show notes below. If you would like a plan that suits your life for the foods that you love and a workout plan that you love, then I would love to help you. So I will see you in the next episode. Bye.